Beloved people of God, hear me. Influence is one of the greatest gifts and one of the most dangerous weapons given to men. Influence is power, because every time you influence a man, you shape his decisions, and every decision shapes destiny. The Bible says, let your light so shine before men. It does not say hide it. Influence is a divine mandate, but it must be stewarded with ethics, purity, and the fear of the Lord. There are realms you will never enter until God can trust you with influence. There are doors that will never open until heaven can verify that your heart is clean enough to handle the attention of men. I have taught you again and again, every promotion in the kingdom is a test of character. Influence is not just about visibility. It is stewardship of the hearts of men. Hear me. When God grants a man influence, he also grants him access. And when he grants you access, he checks your motives. Many people want influence, but they do not want the discipline required to handle it. Influence without ethics becomes manipulation. Influence without integrity becomes sorcery. Influence without love becomes control. The ethics of influence demand that your voice becomes a channel of life, not destruction. The more God lifts you, the more your words become laws to the ears of the simple. People will believe you because of the oil you carry. They will follow you because of the grace you represent. Therefore, you must vet your motives continually before God. The first test of ethical influence is the purity of your intention. Why do you want people to listen to you? Why do you want followers? Why do you want a platform? Is it to reveal Christ or to reveal yourself? Is it to lift men or to enslave them? Second, ethical influence demands discipline in your speech. The Bible says, let your words be seasoned with salt, because the words of an influential man can heal or destroy. One instruction from a man of influence can open doors or close them. One careless statement can break destinies. Third, ethical influence requires accountability. No matter how anointed you are, you must be submitted. A man without oversight is a danger to himself and to everyone following him. Even Jesus submitted to the Father. Fourth, ethical influence demands consistency of lifestyle. People are watching, those who love you, those who doubt you, and those who imitate you. Influence means your life becomes a message, not just your sermons. If your life contradicts your message, your influence becomes a scandal to the kingdom. Finally, ethical influence requires love. Genuine love for people is the highest ethic of influence. Influence without love becomes dominance, but influence rooted in love will bring healing, direction, and transformation. Influence is not about being important. It is about being impactful. The purpose of influence is to point men to Christ, not to ourselves. The ethics of influence is the fear of the Lord made manifest through character. May God raise a generation that will not only be influential, but will be ethical. Men and women whose hearts God has purified, whose motives heaven has validated, and whose influence will bring glory to the King of Kings. Influence in the eyes of the kingdom is far more than visibility, applause, or the gathering of followers. It is a sacred stewardship entrusted to a man or woman by God. When God grants someone influence, he is not merely giving them the ability to speak. He is granting them access to hearts. And hearts are the most delicate vessels in the realm of the spirit. The Bible teaches that out of the heart flows the issues of life. Meaning that whoever can touch a heart can shape a destiny. Influence therefore becomes a spiritual trust, something God must verify, weigh, and approve before placing it on a person. This is why many people pray for platforms, yet remain hidden. Heaven is still testing whether their character can handle the weight of being heard. To steward influence means understanding that every action, every advice, every decision, and even every weakness now affects more than just you. It affects those connected to your voice. When God lifts a man, that man becomes a mirror. People watch closely, they observe, they learn. Some even imitate without discernment. This is why influence is dangerous in the wrong hands. When a person carries influence without wisdom, the error can multiply through the lives of many. A wrong conviction can move as fast as a right one. A casual statement from an influential person can be interpreted as divine instruction. Because of this, the one who is influential must continuously remember that they are not merely living for themselves, they are living as a reference for many who look up to them. A true steward of influence must therefore walk with a deep consciousness of responsibility. Influence is not a throne, it is an altar. It is not primarily for admiration, but for service. God grants influence not so a man can become the center of attention, but so he can become a channel through which God reaches others. Every time God lifts a man, God is telling him, there are people whose change will come through you. Do not fail them. This understanding produces humility, not pride. It produces reverence, not entitlement. It produces diligence, not carelessness. Influence is maintained not by charisma, but by character. Finally, seeing influence as sacred stewardship helps a person remain aligned with God's intentions. When influence is viewed correctly, it becomes a platform to reveal Christ, not oneself. It becomes a tool for transformation, not manipulation. It becomes an opportunity to deposit wisdom, healing, clarity, and direction into the lives of people who trust your voice. Such a perspective protects the influential person from abusing or trivializing the grace given to them. Influence then becomes a holy assignment, something to handle with fear, trembling, and deep gratitude before God. Purity of motive is the foundation upon which righteous influence rests. Long before God gives a man a voice that nations will listen to, he evaluates the intentions hidden within the heart. Motives are invisible to people, but they are loud in the ears of God. Many desire influence for reasons they themselves do not fully understand. Some want validation, others want control, some want relevance, and others simply want to prove a point. But in the kingdom, influence is not granted on the strength of desire, it is granted on the strength of purity. God must first purify the intentions behind a person's pursuit of influence. When the motive is selfish, influence becomes a weapon. When the motive is pure, influence becomes a blessing. This is why the throne of a man is never as important as the posture of his heart. A person whose motives are corrupt will eventually corrupt those who follow them. Influence amplifies who you already are. If you are broken, it amplifies your brokenness. If you are healed, it amplifies your healing. If you are vain, it amplifies your vanity. Therefore, God insists that the pursuit of influence must begin with self-examination. Before asking God to lift you, ask yourself, why do I want to be lifted? Why do I want followers? Why do I want my voice to be heard? These questions are not weaknesses, they are safeguards. They protect you from becoming a danger to yourself and others. The heart is exceedingly deceitful, capable of justifying anything if left untested. And so, purity of motive is not a one-time achievement. It is a continuous alignment process before God. When influence is birthed from pure motives, it carries authenticity. People can sense when someone genuinely cares for their growth, their well-being, and their destiny. There is a fragrance to purity that cannot be faked. Such influence does not manipulate emotions or exploit vulnerabilities. Instead, it nurtures, uplifts, and empowers. Pure motives make influence safe. They ensure that the influential person uses their platform not to draw people into dependence on them, but to lead them toward truth, wisdom, and God. This is why purity of motive creates longevity. People trust what comes from a heart that is sincere. Finally, the integrity of influence is preserved. When a person keeps returning to the secret place where motives are checked and purified, the light of God exposes hidden ambitions and his love uproots wrong desires. When motives remain pure, influence becomes a conduit of grace rather than a tool of ambition. A pure-hearted influencer is not threatened by the success of others, nor do they crave applause to feel significant. They lead from a place of servanthood, not superiority. And in doing so, their influence becomes stable, honorable, and aligned with God's eternal purpose. One of the greatest marks of influence is the weight of a person's words. When a man becomes influential, his words no longer function as mere expressions. They become seeds planted in the minds and hearts of people. For this reason, the Bible repeatedly emphasizes the power of the tongue, warning that life and death lie within it. An influential person must therefore treat speech not as casual conversation, but as a responsibility. The higher God lifts a man, the more disciplined his speech must become. You cannot speak carelessly when people take your words as instruction. You cannot joke recklessly when people interpret your statements as revelation. Influence magnifies speech, turning even whispers into commands. And because of that, the influential must guard their tongue with wisdom. Words are powerful because they frame perspectives. A single sentence from an influential voice can shift how someone sees themselves, sees God, or sees the world. Many destinies have been built because a leader spoke life, and many destinies have been broken because a careless word was released. This is why influence demands verbal discipline. Every statement has the potential to uplift or wound, to guide or mislead. When a man of influence speaks without restraint, he risks transferring his own fears, biases, or moments of weakness into the hearts of those who trust him. And in the kingdom, misrepresenting truth is a serious error. The influential must therefore speak intentionally, understanding that their words are not mere opinions. They are patterns that others may follow. At the same time, disciplined speech requires silence when necessary. Not every thought deserves expression, and not every emotion should be verbalized. Influence teaches a man when to speak and when to remain quiet. Even Jesus demonstrated this discipline. He spoke when it was necessary and remained silent during moments that required restraint. Silence can be a form of wisdom, especially when emotions are high or clarity is lacking. The influential must learn to pause, reflect, and weigh their words before releasing them. Unfiltered speech not only harms others, but can destroy the credibility of the one speaking. Influence is sustained not by how much a person talks, but by the wisdom in what they choose to say. Ultimately, disciplined speech flows from a disciplined heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A man whose heart is governed by truth will speak with clarity. A man whose heart is governed by love will speak with compassion. A man whose heart is governed by humility will speak with caution. Influence elevates the voice, but also exposes the speaker. Therefore, the influential must cultivate inner purity so that their words remain truthful, safe, and edifying. In this way, their speech becomes a tool for building lives, not breaking them, for guiding destinies, not confusing them, for revealing God, not misrepresenting Him. Accountability is one of the strongest safeguards God designed for anyone who carries influence. No matter how anointed, gifted, or intelligent a person becomes, they are never meant to walk alone. Influence without accountability becomes a breeding ground for pride, self-deception, and abuse. When people admire you, when they applaud you, when they trust your voice, it becomes easy to believe that you no longer need correction or guidance. But the truth is, the more God lifts a man, the more he must intentionally surround himself with voices that can challenge him, correct him, and call him back to alignment when necessary. Even Jesus, God in the flesh, walked in submission to the Father, showing us that authority is safest when it is under authority. Character becomes the silent backbone that sustains every influential leader. Charisma may draw people, but character keeps them. Talent may open doors, but character determines whether those doors remain open. When someone becomes influential, people begin to trust not only what they say, but who they are. If their character is inconsistent, unstable, or compromised, the influence they carry becomes dangerous to them and to everyone connected to them. Influence without character turns leaders into performers and followers into victims. This is why God trains the character of a man long before he grants him visibility, because the weight of influence is too heavy for an unrefined heart. Accountability also brings humility. It reminds a person that no matter how much honor they receive from men, they are still human, capable of error, blind spots, and moments of weakness. Without accountability, small weaknesses grow into major scandals. Minor mistakes become destructive patterns. But when a person submits to mentors, spiritual authorities, or wise counselors, they create a system of checks and balances around their life. Accountability does not reduce influence, it protects it. It builds trust, preserves integrity, and ensures that the influential leader remains grounded in truth. Ultimately, influence must be carried with the awareness that eyes are watching, hearts are listening, and lives are being shaped. This awareness should drive an influential person to live with intentionality, to guard their habits, refine their conduct, and maintain a lifestyle that reflects the values they teach. People do not only follow teachings, they follow examples. And nothing destroys influence faster than a contradiction between a person's words and their behavior. Character keeps influence pure. Accountability keeps influence safe. When these two work together, influence becomes a stable platform through which God can trust a man to bless, shape, and lead many without endangering the destiny of those who follow him. Influence, rooted in love, is one of the most powerful forces on earth, because love purifies intention and protects authority from becoming oppressive. When a person leads from genuine love, their influence becomes a source of healing and empowerment. But when influence is rooted in the desire to dominate, impress, or manipulate, it quickly becomes toxic. Love ensures that influence is exercised with tenderness, patience, and compassion. It reminds the influential person that the people they lead are not objects to be used or followers to be controlled. They are souls with value, dignity, and divine purpose. Love therefore becomes the ethical compass that governs how influence is applied and how people are treated. When influence flows from love, its impact is transformational rather than transactional. People do not feel pressured into obedience. They feel understood and uplifted. Love-driven influence focuses on what is best for the individual, not what is convenient for the leader. It corrects without crushing, guides without forcing, and inspires without manipulating. This kind of influence leaves people better than it found them. It builds confidence, encourages growth, and awakens destiny. Many people follow influential figures not because of their eloquence or intelligence, but because they feel genuinely valued. Love gives influence a fragrance that draws hearts naturally, without coercion. Love also guards influence from the subtle dangers of pride and entitlement. When someone begins to taste the applause of men, the temptation to elevate oneself becomes stronger. But love keeps the heart soft. It reminds the influential person that their role is to serve, not to control, to uplift, not to demand, to bless, not to intimidate. A leader who operates in love understands that influence is not measured by how many people submit to them, but by how many people rise because of them. Love transforms influence from a throne of superiority into a platform of service. It keeps the leader human, approachable, and empathetic, even in the midst of honor and recognition. Finally, influence rooted in love has longevity. Manipulation may produce temporary results, but it cannot sustain loyalty, trust, or genuine impact. People eventually drift away from voices that control them, but they cling to voices that genuinely care for them. Love creates a safe environment where people can grow, ask questions, make mistakes, and still feel accepted. It creates relationships built on trust rather than fear. And trust is the true currency of influence. When people know that your influence springs from love, they follow with confidence, not because they are forced, but because they are inspired. Beloved, hear me, influence is not a trophy you carry. It is a cross you bear with wisdom, humility, and love. God is raising men and women in this generation whose voices will shape nations, whose decisions will shape families, whose convictions will shape cultures, but only those who can be trusted with the hearts of men. Influence is not measured by how loudly you speak, but by how faithfully you steward the grace given to you. As God lifts you, remember this: the goal is not to be important, the goal is to be impactful. The goal is not to gather followers for yourself, but to point men to the one who is the source of all truth, Jesus Christ. Let your influence reveal him. Let your influence heal. Let your influence restore. Let your influence communicate integrity, purity, and compassion. Let your influence become a testimony that God can raise ordinary men and use them for extraordinary purposes. And finally, I pray for you. May God purify your motives, refine your character, discipline your speech, strengthen your accountability structures, and saturate your heart with genuine love. May your influence be protected from corruption and preserved by the fear of the Lord. May you rise as a voice of wisdom in your generation, trusted, respected, and aligned with the purposes of God. Go forth with this understanding: influence is a sacred calling. Steward it well